Hi, I am Kathy Henry. I am a counselor in the Indianapolis area, and I have been working with individuals and couples for about 8.5 years now. In that time, do you know what one of the most common complaints among couples is? It's communication. People say, we just can't communicate. And I find this interesting because they don't have any trouble communicating with me. Most of them hold down a pretty steady job, so they obviously can communicate with their employers. So I suspect the problem isn't that they can't communicate, but rather that they have stopped communicating with one another. So let me talk about that for a moment. Think about when you first met. You communicated all the time. You might have spent hours and hours talking, maybe even all night long. The communication was easy, and we shared the deepest parts of our heart with our partners, and they lapped it up and they wanted more. We did the same for them. We were very interested in them and very intrigued to know more and more about them. So, do you want to know when that changed? It's very simple. When pride entered the equation. When we stopped thinking about them and started thinking more about ourselves. So let's talk about what are some of the prideful things that we do when we communicate with our partners. And that keeps us from having productive communication. The first thing is right fighting. And that, just like it sounds, we have a need to be right. So we fight even when there's overwhelming evidence that we're wrong. Sometimes we fight just to be right. And it may not even be that we need to be right, but that we can't accept being wrong. And it's interesting because even when we win, it's not very satisfying because it really isn't that we want to hurt our partner, but that our pride gets in the way and we need to, just have the need to be right. If you think about this, think about what it's like for your partner. If you always win, or maybe it's just that you're never the wrong one, then that means your partner always has to be the wrong one. And that's not very satisfying for them. The second thing that keeps us from having productive communication is enmeshment. I could talk for a day and a half about that alone. It's a pretty loaded one. Enmeshment is basically when our emotions are all tangled up in with someone else's, with our partners. And so when the other person feels a negative emotion, then we don't feel okay. When they feel a positive emotion, we do feel okay. So when a fight breaks out, because I sense that you are feeling something and I need to change that so that I can feel okay. Do you see why that is a problem? In order for me to feel okay, I've got to get you to change what you are feeling to something that is acceptable to me. Well, that's a big task because I really don't have any control over you and you're going to fight me. The third thing that gets in the way of productive communication is kitchen sinking. Again, just like it sounds, when an argument breaks out, sometimes we just can't resist the temptation to throw everything but the kitchen sink into the mix. So everything that we have been stockpiling for years of all the misdeeds and all the hurts and all the complaints that we've had about our partner, and they all come out in the middle of an argument. So now instead of having one problem to deal with, now we have 10 problems to deal with. And 9 of them are ones that we couldn't solve before anyway. And so trying to solve one problem today is going to be difficult enough. And so now adding those other 9 problems that couldn't be solved into the mix, I mean, we've just got a mess and it will never get solved. So we have to, so that kitchen sinking is never helpful, never productive when we're trying to communicate with our partner. The fourth thing that keeps us from productive communication it's a real big one, and that is not listening. People have a deep, deep need to be heard and understood. All of us, every last one of us, we have a deep need to be heard and understood. And in our effort to be heard, one of the problems is that most of us engage in a lot of behaviors that actually counteract our ability to be heard. Things like talking over each other. I've had couples in my office that are both talking at the exact same time, and I know I can't even hear what's going on. I know that neither one of them are able to hear the other person. Interrupting is another big one, and that is that just demonstrates that you're not listening because you are just waiting for them to take a breath so that you can jump in and argue your point. Anticipating a negative response from the other person and then thinking of our defense. So your brain is worrying around thinking of your defense instead of listening. Storming out of the room, slamming the door, all of those kinds of things. Name calling is another one. It's certainly not productive. Cross-complaining, and again, introducing other items from past arguments into the mix. Sarcastic jabs that get thrown in just kind of to wound. Yelling at each other. If you can't hear me, I'll just yell a little louder. And that's a real common problem as well. The problem is that both people are trying so hard to be heard that neither one of them will get heard because neither one of them are listening. They're just intent on trying to be heard. So how actually do you resolve an argument and communicate with one another? Number one is you've got to learn the concept of humility. Understand that you're not such a peach to live with, and sometimes you're probably a royal pain in the butt. Your partner is going to be right sometimes, and sometimes they will be wrong, and so will you. When you are wrong, admit it. Humbling yourself in this way is one of the greatest acts of love that you can give your partner, and it will draw your partner towards you. Number two, deal with one issue at a time. This will take some time to learn how to do it. It'll be hard to resist that temptation to bring all of our old hurts into the argument. But I encourage you to discuss it with your partner now, not in the middle of an argument, but ahead of time, that when somebody introduces another topic into the argument, that it's not productive and nothing will get solved, so that we need to stop that. But encourage them, because it will be hard to resist, that when a new topic comes up, to gently kind of redirect and come back to the original topic so that you can hopefully at least get one issue solved today. And in fact, my husband was good at doing this. At one point, he would say things, if I brought up something new to the argument, he would say, I hear you and we can talk about that, but I want to talk about this first. And he did it very non-reactively, and that helped me to feel like I was going to be heard on the other issue, but it also, because I knew it wasn't productive, helped me to come back to the issue at hand and try to solve that instead. So the kitchen sinking is not going to help. Deal with one issue at a time. You will be lucky if you can resolve one issue, especially if you have a lot of communication problems. Number three, stop trying to change what your partner feels. They are allowed to feel something different than you do. And if they are angry at you, that's going to happen. There's no possible way you can live with somebody else for the entire rest of your life and never have them get angry at you for some reason. In fact, they may not even be angry at you. They may be angry at something else. You just think they're angry at you. Nevertheless, let them feel whatever it is they're going to feel. Maybe they have a good reason, maybe they don't, but you need to let them feel it. Just convincing the other person that they shouldn't feel whatever they're feeling never solves anything. I promise you, it never solves anything. You're wasting your time. Instead of trying to change what they feel, what I really encourage you to do is try dealing with your own anxiety instead. Try to figure out what that's about. I used to get really anxious when my husband was angry or upset, either with me or with somebody else, and I would get what I call pre-defensive. meaning I would get myself all angry and worked up, defending anything that I could possibly have done that might have upset him. And I finally realized there was no way that I could go the rest of my life without getting him angry. And so I learned to deal with my anxiety instead of trying to change whatever he was feeling. And our communication about that got so much better. And the final thing you can do to help communication and help actually resolve some arguments in your relationship is you have got to stop trying to be heard and start trying to hear. And I'm going to say that again. You need to stop trying to be heard and start trying to hear. And if you say, well, but well, forget it, then things are not going to get solved. You have to set your pride aside and listen to what your partner is saying. And just forget about being right for now. Forget about past hurts and misdeeds for now. Not forever, just for right now. And listen to them. You are not going to be heard until your partner feels heard. And if you say, but why do I always have to go first? Well, I get it. It's uncomfortable. But if you're waiting for things to be fair, then forget it. It's not going to get solved. You have to be the bigger person. Lower your pride. Be humble, and be the bigger person, and try to hear your partner. If both of you can do that, that's great. But honestly, I suspect if you could do that, then you wouldn't be watching this video. I hope that this has shed some light on why you're having trouble communicating in your relationship. I hope that some of these techniques will make it easier for you. And again, change does not happen overnight. This is difficult. And I can assure you, I have made every one of these mistakes more times than I care to talk about. And that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about what I do, because all of the mistakes that I've made have caused pain in my life. And my partner made mistakes too, and it caused pain. And then this was an important relationship. And so, it's one of the most important relationships of our lives, and we don't want to be suffering. We want to love each other. So I want that for you too. If you need some help with any of this, then give me a call. My phone number is 317-727-8939, and I'd be happy to set up an appointment and meet with you and talk more about this in detail. So have a great day, and thank you for watching.